Well, hey, howdy, hi! Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by to join me today. I really do appreciate it. My name is Ellie, and I'm a witch. And this over here is my teaching assistant, Andy, and today is Tuesday, and on my channel that means it is tea time and a true crime, and today's true crime topic is going to be the Oakland County child killer. So I'm going to jump into the case, but I do have an update on a case that I covered previously at the end, so if you want to stick around for that. Trigger warnings for this case because it is heavy as this killer targeted children, so be mindful that this case involves murder and sexual assault against children, as well as a brief mention of suicidal ideations. If that is not something that you think you can handle, I have plenty of other videos on my channel that are unrelated in nature. So this case is unsolved, so we do not know the perpetrator's real identity, but he has been given several names by the media: the babysitter killer, the snow murderer, and the Oakland County child killer. Now there are 4 confirmed victims in this case, 2 boys and 2 girls between the ages of 10 to 12. They all went missing outside of their homes, either going somewhere or returning. All of the victims lived in Oakland County, Michigan. Each victim was found in a public area within 19 days of their disappearance. Cause of death was either strangulation or gunshot, with just the boys having been sexually assaulted. Mark Stebbins was 12 years old when he didn't return home on February 15, 1976. His body was found 4 days later, wearing the same clothes he was last seen in. He was found on a pile of wood and dirt in the parking lot of a local office building. He had been assaulted and strangled, with bruising on his wrist and ankles to indicate he was bound. Jill Robinson was also 12 when she left home on December 22, 1976. The next day, her bike was found behind the local Hobby Lobby. Her body was found March 26th off of Interstate 75 within view of the Troy Police Department. She was in the same clothes she was last seen in. Her autopsy report concluded that she was well cared for and fed for 3 days prior to her death. Her cause of death was a gunshot wound. Christine Mihelich is the youngest victim at 10 years old. Her parents reported her missing on January 2, 1977, when she did not return home from an errand. A mail carrier was the one who discovered her body 19 days later on the side of the road. Her cause of death was strangulation. Timothy King was 11 when he disappeared on his way home from a drugstore on March 16, 1977. He was found in a shallow grave by 2 teenagers on March 22nd. He had been assaulted and suffocated the same day. Autopsy report indicated that he had been fed his favorite meal and was groomed right before his death. Those are the 4 confirmed victims, but there are 3 that are suspected to be victims of the same killer, and there are also 3 that were originally connected but have since been ruled out. I will include those just to paint a full picture. Donna Sarah was 17 and hitchhiking on September 29th of 1972 when she went missing. Her body was found a month later, face down in a local creek. She had been imprisoned and drugged prior to her death, which was by strangulation. Janie Allen was 13 when she went missing on August 8, 1976. She had also been hitchhiking that day. Now her body was found 3 days later in a river in Ohio. She was found still bound with ripped strips of t-shirt. Her body was too decomposed for the medical examiner to determine if she had been sexually assaulted, but they were able to confirm that she had died of carbon monoxide poisoning and that she was dead prior to being placed in the river. Kimberly Kim King was 12 when she disappeared on September 15, 1979. She had been staying at a friend's house that night, but at 11 p.m. she phoned her sister to say that she had snuck out and was calling from a phone booth. Her sister told her to go back inside, but she did not return. She is still a missing person, but is considered to be connected to the unsolved murders. 16-year-old Judy Farrow was found beaten and strangled on January 1, 1976 in Redford, Michigan. She had been babysitting, and that house is where she disappeared from sometime between midnight and 3 a.m. Her body was found by police at 7 a.m., fully clothed. It was later discovered that a man named Gary Pervinkler, 19 at the time, had been out at the time of the disappearance with a gun and was identified as the prime suspect. He was found by police on April 7th with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The same gun was linked to Judy's murder, and her case was closed. Cynthia Cindy Cardo was 16 when she was found on January 16, 1976. She had been kidnapped while hitchhiking 2 days prior. Her body was found unclothed, bruising indicating she had been tied up. She had been raped and then beaten to death. Robert Englund and Raymond Heinrich were convicted of her rape and murder in 1979. A third man was involved, but has not been named. He died before the others were arrested. Englund and Heinrich were both sentenced to life in prison. Sheila Rock was 14 when she was raped, then shot on January 20th, 1976. A neighbor spotted her killer, Oliver Rhodes Andrew, later when he was burglarizing homes in the neighborhood. He was sentenced to life in prison. After Christine was found, the police linked the first two murders to the same killer. This led police to create a task force to catch said killer. A witness came forward after Timothy had been reported missing to say that she had seen him talking to a man in the parking lot of the pharmacy that Timothy had been on his way to when he disappeared. Using this witness testimony, police created a profile and sketch. A witness had also said the kidnapper's vehicle was a blue AMC Gremlin. Police then went around interviewing every Gremlin owner in Oakland County. The profile of the kidnapper was a white male between the ages of 25 to 30 with shaggy hair and sideburns, and he likely had a job that gave him freedom of movement and was a job that made him seem trustworthy to children. He also had to be familiar with the area. Before the task force was disbanded, they fielded over 18,000 tips and made over 24 arrests. They did not find the killer, but they did find a multi-state child pornography ring. As time has gone on, there have been countless suspects in the case, some more credible than others. Just a few weeks following Timothy's murder, a psychologist working with the task force came forward with an anonymous letter. The letter was riddled with spelling mistakes, but the author used the name Alan. He claimed to be a sadomasochistic slave of the serial killer who he called Frank. He wrote that the pair had served in the Vietnam War and that Frank had been traumatized as he had killed children in the war and felt a need to take revenge on those who he thought were responsible for sending the troops to Vietnam. Alan expressed fear and remorse, going on to say that he was losing his sanity and that he was suicidal. He admitted he had gone with Frank when he went out looking for a child. He then instructed the psychologist to respond by having the words, "Weather Bureau says trees to bloom in 3 weeks," in the Sunday edition of the Detroit Free Press. He also agreed to back up his claims with photographic evidence if he would be granted immunity. The psychologist arranged to meet with Alan at a bar, but he never showed and was never heard from again. Archibald Edward Sloan was a child molester who had targeted young boys in his neighborhood. He became a person of interest after hair samples found in his car were matched to samples taken from Timothy and Mark's bodies. The hairs found in the car were not Sloan's, though. A witness claimed that it was 2 men who had kidnapped Timothy, and that the other man bore a strong resemblance to John Wayne Gacy. DNA ruled Gacy out. In Ohio, Ted Lamborghini was arrested. He had been involved in a sex ring in 1970 that revolved around young boys. He was one of 2 surviving members of the ring when they were charged in 2006. He was facing 19 counts of sexual assault against children, while the other living member, Richard Lawson, faced 28 charges. Lamborghini pled guilty to 15 counts, rather than take a plea deal that included a polygraph test in regards to the Oakland County murders. He later declined an offer for a reduced sentence if he took the polygraph test. Timothy's father, Barry, and his brother, Chris, tried to point police in the direction of Chris Bush, son of General Motors executive Harold Lee Bush. Chris had been in police custody shortly before Timothy disappeared on suspicion of child pornography involvement. He committed suicide in 1978, and upon investigation of his apartment, police found bloody ligatures and a picture that seemed to resemble Mark. The prosecutors for Oakland County stated that DNA exonerated Chris and that the case is still unsolved. In 2005, an unidentified man, only referred to as Jeff, became a common figure in the case. He came forward after being reminded about an acquaintance he had in 1977. In 2010, he sat down with police and gave an account of an atypical conversation that he had had with this acquaintance, things like trying to talk him into satanic rituals. The acquaintance also talked about details in the Allen letter, and Jeff asked police for access to the letter so he could confirm his suspicions, but he was denied. Later in 2010, he had a recorded conversation with Oakland County investigator and prosecutor Jessica Cooper to present evidence in regards to the case. He claimed to have tried to approach Jessica with his evidence and to convince her to place the case under the jurisdiction of the Department of Justice. Jessica denies that happened. Jeff was not able to actually present any evidence and was again denied access to the Allen letter. Jessica later said of the interview, "It was a rambling statement outlining a theory that the Oakland County child killer abductions and murders were related to pagan holidays, the lunar calendar, and Wiccan rituals." Jeff then moved on to correspond with Christine's mother, as well as investigative journalists. He claimed to be part of a team of a dozen investigators involved in the case and could identify the perpetrators of the crime, but he refused to say what division he worked for. He claimed to have worked over 10,000 hours over several years, but refused to release his results as he doubted the competence of the Oakland County investigators. He later indicated possible meddling by Jessica, and that was another reason he didn't want to release any information. Jeff claimed to have figured out who the perpetrator was, but before he released the information, he wanted access to the Allen letter to confirm that he was right before he went public. Jeff spoke with Paul Hughes, an attorney, about his suspicions and his findings. According to him, the total victim count was between 11 to 16, which is significantly more than the 4 confirmed. Based on this information, Paul attempted a lawsuit against Oakland County authorities to the tune of $100 million, citing mishandling of the investigation and demanding Jessica's resignation. From what I can find, that case didn't go anywhere, but there isn't really much information about the lawsuit past 2012. And that is all that I have for you about today's case. This one is really sad. I wish that we had some more information. I also want to know more about why Jeff is not looked at as like a suspect. People just think, oh, he's a really weird guy. Honestly, suspicious. Like, even if he didn't do it, it's weird to be so desperate to look at letters about child killing, and like, I don't know what that confirms. It's just weird, and I feel like Jeff should probably be talked to. I did say, though, that there is an update for a case that I already covered. It is the Gilgo Beach murders. I did say that I would update you guys about the trial, but this update is a little bit different. The trial still does not have a date, but there had been a hearing about if the hair found is going to be allowed to be used at trial, so admission of DNA evidence. At the time of recording this video, there has not been a ruling yet. The big update, though, is that Peaches and Baby Doe have been identified as Tanya Jackson and Tatiana Dykes. Tanya was born October 22nd, 1970, and Tatiana was born March 17th, 1995. Tanya was a U.S. Army veteran, having served in the Gulf War. It is unknown where she had been living at the time of the murder, as she moved around a lot, but her and Tatiana have been laid to rest in the Alabama State Veterans Memorial Cemetery. There is some debate, now that they have been identified, as to their relation to the Gilgo Beach murders. As it stands, no charges have been brought against Rex Heuermann in relation to Tanya or Tatiana. I will update you, of course, when new updates are released. So, yeah, this one just was very sad. Really interesting to have the update, though, about the Gilgo Beach murders. I'm following that trial, but obviously trials take a very long time. It's not a cut and dry process. It takes a long time, and the lawyers are fighting it really hard on every aspect, which makes sense. Obviously, defense lawyers are going to do that, but it means that it likely will not start trial until next year at this point, or at least that is my guess. So as things develop, I will let you know. Super awesome to see that Peaches and Baby Doe were finally identified. Hopefully we'll get some identification on the other does in the case. Videos coming out next week. I'm skipping Legends and Lore once again. For Misheard History, I'm going to be talking about Emperor Joshua Norton. And then for Tea Time and True Crime, I'll be talking about Charles Cullen. Super excited to talk about Joshua Norton. He was Emperor of the United States, which is bizarre. And the whole thing is just super interesting. It was a subscriber suggestion, so thank you for that. But yeah, it's gonna be super interesting and fun, so I look forward to that one. But yeah, I don't want to take up too much more of your guys' time. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye!